Mr. Rotimi Sankore, a journalist and developmental expert. You can contact him on Twitter at Rotimi Sankore. And Mr. Desmond Majekudumi, one of Nigeria's leading environmentalists. You can reach him on Twitter. Desmond Majek. Okay. Yeah. So we're going into the issues. Mr. Rotimi was talking a lot about the issues, the bigger picture around some of those migrating patterns. I want to quickly touch something, and that's one of the things we're talking about, because we're going now. I want us to come from here, then go into the migration issues. Then we now come back to what do you call it? We come back to how to solve this particular issue.
Sorry, Tunji, before you go into the migration, I had wanted to end on one note, which is that entire cocktail that we were describing before the break, yes, has led to a very toxic and explosive level of poverty. Look, if you put 1 million gallons of petrol and threw dynamite into it, it couldn't get worse
than what it is.
Than that in socio-economic terms. And it's that toxic poverty that is going to cause massive problems, not region. Just for the Northeast economy, but expanding to other parts of the country. So that's where the big...
So City of Lagos, just to recap what Mr. Rotimi said before we went on the break. First of all, the high fertility rates, the number of children sad by each male in that region, maybe 4 to 6 wives, maybe 23 children per man, no education. The economic support in terms of the Lake Chad Basin is going, not gone completely, but is going very rapidly. There's no fishing. There is no farming again in that area. So they have no means to be able to make any money. They have no education to be able to transit to another skill level. And even if they were going to transit into another skill, where are they going to practice it? Who is going to buy from them? So the question now says, you've just put waiting minds, ready minds, who need to feed their family, and you've not given them anything to do. So you find out that that's why it's so easy. Someone can come radicalize you and say, pick up guns and go and do stuff.
Absolutely.
But let's go into, cattle are the most important livestock raised in that region. Notable breeds include the Kuri, which is mostly seen around the Chad region. But milk is a major component of the local diets. Cattle are an important export to that area. Now, livestock raising was sharply affected by the drought of the 1970s and the 1980s. I want to ask a question. You know the way you go to the cinemas and before the movie starts, you see the preview and they go, "Coming to a cinema near you." What's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio. This person coming down. That was the preview to the Lake Chad crisis. Did we do anything? Did we start to plan? Did we start to think? Because I saw pictures of that particular time. People on trucks going far to look for water to feed their families. So what did we do at that point?
And when you consider that preview would have come with one definitive word that Rotimi used, and that word always shocks me to my core, because just the actual tone of that word is frightening. What is that word? He said, we are brewing a catastrophe. Catastrophe. Do you know that catastrophe is, in other languages, bafoka and quench? It's, yeah. It's
true.
Yeah. And that drought was a preview of what will develop into catastrophe. For God's sake. The fact that not much was done is totally inexcusable. And the reality is that almost nothing at all was done. That's more than inexcusable. That is, that is a crime against the future of this nation. You have this advert. You saw what could happen if this thing gets worse. The scientists told you that it is getting very, very bad. We need to do specific things. There are specific measures we need to take. Otherwise, livelihood, like you rightly said, the cattle rearing is a fantastic livelihood, especially if you do it in situ. And a lot of the cattle rearing in that location, it was done fairly much within the region of that location. Before the cows would actually be sent on their migratory tour to be sold in other areas, they would have been so well fattened. If you know the type of grass that would grow
in those regions,
because not only is it a very moist area, as the water recedes, the grass continues to grow following that annual recession of the water. So where the cows have been grazing before, they can now leave that and move forward and follow the recession. And guess what?
Beautiful. As you know, nature just has its beautiful ways of creating, the balance between man, wildlife, nature, everything together.
Absolutely, but it's more than just beautiful. It's miraculous. It's a miraculous system of life support that a creator, a benevolent creator, has put in place to support the lives of not just the humans but all the other animals there. It's a miraculous system, and to just go in there and play havoc with the system, because this problem with the Lake Chad, it was caused by our attitudes. Climate change is a part of it, but only a part of it that's exacerbating an already existing problem that we were perpetrating. And one of the biggest perpetrators of that problem was tearing down all the trees, tearing down forests. For what? For firewood. No. And okay, which nation is doing this? Is it not the nation that produces more gas than just about any other nation in the whole world? People are taking Nigeria's gas and using it for cooking. Meanwhile, Nigeria, who is burning her gas, is now tearing down the trees that's exacerbating the problem. Rotimi, God forbid that this your catastrophe shall come to pass. So
we hope not, but the important thing is to underline it clearly so everyone understands what is likely to happen.
So I want to paint a quick picture here. So I see this, I'm looking at this from the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and they have a snapshot of the Lake Chad Basin crisis. So we have 17.4 million people living in this particular affected area right now. Now, 10.7 million of this 17.4 are in desperate need. Right? Desperate need. 2.3 million have been displaced. Now, when I mean displaced, are living in IDP camps, refugees in other nations, returnees, refugees everywhere. We have 488,000 children suffering from severe and acute malnutrition. That's almost 500,000 children suffering from acute malnutrition. Now, there are 5.8 million people affected by food insecurity. We have 928 schools have been shut down in that region. Guess who has the lion's share of that 982 schools? Nigeria. Now, we don't only have a lion's share, we have 802 of those 28 schools in Nigeria. We have 93 in Cameroon, 28 in Niger, and 5 in Chad that have been closed because of this issue. This is amazing. Okay. Now, we've had 2.3 million people migrate from this region. Some of them have moved to communities around the eastern region. Some of them have moved as far as Lagos. You find out that most people don't realize that we find it easier and easier to get megas in Lagos and not realizing where they actually come from, and we're seeing, and this thing is continuing to happen. It's continuing to happen. It's getting worse and worse. Is there somebody's? I feel somebody's about to strike the match right now.
Well, so we're in the World Cup era. So let's bring in a footballing analogy. Governance is like football. Those that invest the most in capacity development, in human development, will make the most progress. So the World Cup, since its inception, I know that Femi and the gang will be upset now that I don't know the exact figure, but I think only 8 or 9 countries have won the World Cup.
Yeah.
since inception.
Continuously. And
Yes.
they've been sharing it among themselves.
Yes, because they have made the most investment in the human capacity for their football and other sports. Just 8 or 9 countries. So it's the same for economic development. If you invest in human capacity and skills, you make the most progress. So bearing in mind what I was pointing out earlier, that in Yobe, before the Boko Haram insurgency hit its height, 83% of males had no access to education. In Borno, just over 63% of all males had no access to education. In other words, the numbers of those that had been to primary or secondary school, not to mention university, is roughly 17% in Yobe and about 27% in Borno.
Shocking.
So, in terms of developing a modern economy, in terms of industrialization, modernization, the human capacity just doesn't exist in that place, because successive governments
Have ignored
not underinvested though, ignored completely the education sector. And this has meant that the domino effect in terms of healthcare providers, economists, accountants, engineers, you just name it. Everything you need to run a modern society there is non-existent. So what you've had is a carryover of a feudal agrarian society for hundreds of years into modern Nigeria, but with millions and millions of kids that have no tools and no capacity. Now, you mentioned the neighboring countries. It's important to note that in Niger and Chad, if you look at what is called the Global Human Development Index, which measures global development. So Niger and Chad are at the bottom of the Global Human Development Index.
That's right.
In fact, along with many other colleagues and some people have even done before our generation, they've put together the data and said, if you take the border areas of Niger, Chad, and all those Yobe, Borno, and make it one country, it will be at the bottom of the Global Human Development Index. In other words, that area will be the least developed geographical region in the world. Now note that Nigeria is an oil-rich country, has been for many decades,
and still did not.
And these resources are shared to the states. So if you want to look at accountability, you need to go back to like 1960 and start to question
Successive
governments, why was the investment not made in education, which would then lead to industrialization and preparing a lot of these peasants for a different skill set, especially when the drought that you and Desmond started talking about setting, to prepare them for a complete different skill set. Now, post Boko Haram, as you've pointed out, about 1,000 schools have been destroyed. Now, so 1,000 schools have been destroyed in a region which did not have enough.
Can you imagine?
So this is now what you call,
adding salt to injury.
There is this thing that we say in Nigeria, reverse back.
Yes.
Reverse already means you are going back anyway. But in Nigeria, we add back to it. So now this is reverse back at high speed. Now, hundreds of teachers have been killed. Thousands have been displaced relative to higher population growth and disruption of the entire economy. But Tunji, you mentioned one important factor, which is hunger and malnutrition.
Yeah.
So, when you suffer severe hunger and malnutrition, it results in something called stunting. By the age of 5, if you have not received adequate malnutrition,
Adequate nutrition.
Yes, your intellectual development stops by the age of 5 if you are severely malnourished.
Yeah.
In other words, the engine knocks. No cognitive development. You can grow into an adult body.
Yeah, but in
but
terms of
your,
being able
your
to...
mental ability is that of a child, probably even less than that of a child. So if we now have in that region about 500,000 such
severely
people,
malnourished children, then you
plus,
realize what the future is holding.
yes. So it then means, because in effect, stunting is worse than mental retardation.
Actually.
Yes.
Actually.
You can't comprehend if there is any sentence that is overly complicated. In fact, 3 sentences that contain 2 instructions, you don't get it. If they say, go here, then when you get there, you do this, and just the rest is lost.
You've just caused trouble.
Confusion.
Because retardation means...
all you hear is just go there.
Your mind could capture it at some point,
Yes.
but now it's lost some
It's
of its
gone.
ability. But the fact that you just have absolutely no capacity to carry this is just scary. But apparently...
So, sorry, just Tunji,
Yeah.
please indulge me. Now,
Okay.
what people describe as low intellectual ability by some people from some part of the country is not low intellectual ability. It is actually an outcome of severe malnutrition and stunting on a mass scale. On a mass scale. It has nothing to do with ethnicity or religion or where you are from. Because if you see the same people that are from that area, and they went to King's College, like in my time, you know, you went to King's College, you went to Unilag, then you went abroad. You went to London School of Economics, Harvard, or wherever.
They come back different.
They come back the same as the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know, no difference, the ability. But that's because they had the right malnutrition,
They had
right education.
right nutrition, yeah.
Sorry. They had the right nutrition and education. So this problem
is deeper than we think.
deeper, and it is going to get much
worse because
worse.
we're not paying attention.
And the economic implication is that when you have this kind of mass toxic poverty along with growing malnutrition, less access to education, introduction of extremism, what is going to happen is that we are going to spend billions and billions of more dollars on, guess what? Security.
Exactly.
So the billions of dollars we could have spent on education, improved nutrition, more skills, social development, and that were not spent by successive governors in those areas will now be taken from the federal government to go and spend on security,
on buying guns and
helicopters and propeller jets. I mean, that is the biggest farce in Nigeria. That a jet
can have a propeller.
Can have propellers. And it is so bad that even large sections of the media have not figured out that once it has propellers, it cannot be a jet. A jet does not use propellers. So when people say Tucano propeller jet, $1 billion, I say yay.
Oh my God. All right. So by the way, I noticed that there was a $5 million study initiated by President Olusegun Obasanjo on the shrinking of Lake Chad. Anybody heard about the findings?
No, I just want to say yay to his own yay, because he gets as a bill. And, hopefully that study would have identified
some of
the only possible solution for that location, with people, who have been, their intellectual development has been so badly compromised that, even if you're going to treat them, teach them skills and so on, the only thing that they can still do tangibly is actually farming pursuits, pastoral pursuits, fishing,
actively planting trees,
and but to get them gainfully employed is the only hope. Because there's a whole generation that he's, so rightly talking about who have been totally
let me add
stunted.
this to your thoughts now. There's a Transaqua initiative. It's a proposal It's been developed by in partnership between an Italian engineering and consulting firm, Bonifica, in partnership with the Power Construction Corporation of China. They are proposing, this is the proposal, right? It's called Transaqua. It's supposed to replenish the Lake Chad region. It imagines a 2,600 kilometer canal from the Democratic Republic of Congo across the Central African Republic to meet with the Chari River that feeds into the freshwater lake. Now, the problem here is that Transaqua has been proposed by this corporations, and it is going to cost about $14 billion from the from the four countries. Challenge is that it's going to pass through some regions of instability, insecurity, and you're thinking to yourself, can we do it?
Exactly. Challenge upon challenge upon challenge. There's a cheaper, more realistic way that has been actually perfected by Niger, by Burkina Faso. They've actually perfected it, and this is, to re-green this area. Because you see, because we're talking of an area. Look, the Sahara Desert, thousands of years ago, it was a Sahel savanna. There are rock drawings in a place, in an oasis called Agadez, where you will see pictures of giraffe. The giraffe is an animal that will feed on the leaves of the acacia tree. Acacia grows in savanna forest. This whole area was green. And the reality of forests is that they are relay runners for rain.
True.
Yeah, water evaporates from a body, and it will never go more than 100 to 150 kilometers away from where it evaporated. It falls. And then what makes it go on is that the forests pick it up and do transvaporation, put it back in. So if they really are serious about getting this place back to what it was, then they should get it back to what it was, which is a green space.
I think there's already work on that. It says the UNDP is carrying out a developmental project focusing on natural resource management and rehabilitation of the Lake Chad ecosystem. Now, reforestation is one of the solutions supported by France.
Absolutely.
As part of the commitments made in COP21 and 22 climate conferences. The Ministry of Ecology signed a $1.7 million partnership to restore vegetation cover around the lake, support women's economic initiatives, and help adapt agricultural practices to climate change. Over 4,000 hectares will be planted with drought-tolerant seedlings on 5 vulnerable sites to protect the planters from silting.
And guess what? They can make big money from those.
Even
said
if
they
plant
serious money.
Gum Arabic.
Exactly.
You know how much they can make if they plant gum Arabic?
From what I see here, 4,000 acacia trees have been planted.
It should be 4 million.
Anyway, so it's okay. What is Nigeria doing to all of this? Because I'm hearing France, I'm hearing UNDP.
Tunji, the simple solution to this thing is this. That $14 billion that they want to use to bring
water
from the Congo River Basin, it is a non-starter, it's a waste of time. Anybody familiar with the history of the Panama Canal, very short Panama Canal, will know how long it took, how much over budget, how many lives were lost, and all the political conflict around it. Now you want to go to Congo River Basin to start. Man, look, this is going to go on for 200 years, and that money will just keep going up. That 14 billion, they should just reinvest it in education, reskilling, development in the entire northeast plus parts of Chad and Niger.
And reforestation.
And combine it with tree planting.
That's it.
Evidence has shown if you plant a certain number of trees every day for 10 years in an area that has been affected by desertification, you can return it to a forest.
Yes.
We've seen the evidence in many parts of the world.
There's even a story of a man that did that that I saw recently. So yeah, it is possible. It's not just a theory anymore. It's been practicalized.
Yes, and those trees are economic value to people.
Exactly, and it makes. I mean, we can even decide the kind of plants so that we are planning for economic activity in the future.
Definitely. Yes. In fact, the desertification may get worse because when you have all these millions of displaced people, IDPs and refugees, they will be going for firewood and even making the desertification worse.
Yes, very true.
So what we need is a comprehensive plan which regreens, that is
Retools.
tens of thousands of trees replanted, retool, re-educate, and for the millions that can't be re-educated because they're already suffering from severe malnutrition and stunting, just teach them vocational skills that they can gingerly manage with. They can just gingerly manage with. But make sure that in terms of teachers, for instance, weren't you alarmed to hear that Liberia was coming here to take teachers when the northeast and northwest Nigeria need tens of thousands of teachers for schools? Because this schools deficit, okay, you just imagine in Yobe and Borno, 83% males, no access to education. In Borno, 63% male. It's worse for women.
Exactly.
It's worse for women.
Exactly.
So
worse.
to be able to bring it up to scale, you need tens of thousands of teachers, which will not come from that region, which will come from other parts of
the country.
Nigeria, which means you now start to look at the politics, all this nonsense about which state you come from, whether you are a citizen, and so forth. You know, when you look at health indicators like maternal mortality, and you realize that it is high, not just because of forced child marriage, 12 or 13-year-old girls having children, but when a man in that region comes and says he only wants a female doctor to treat his wife, and you say yes, in a place where 86% of the girls are not going to school, they don't have access to education.
How possible?
Where would the female doctors and midwives come from? So there's a whole lot of politics that we need to deal with in this country. But the long and short is, if we don't deal with it,
it will
deal with us, both economically and politically.
All right. On that note, I think we've been able to do quite a bit of justice to the show. I wish we should have started straight. Maybe we should not have taken much of the headlines because there's still so much we could have covered. But we've been able to do some level of justice. Thank you, Mr. Rotimi Sankore, journalist and developmental expert. You can reach him on Rotimi Sankore on Twitter, at Rotimi Sankore. A vast mind on issues around development, especially around the sub-Saharan African region. You can reach him on it. Mr. Desmond Majekudumi, one of Nigeria's leading environmental experts. You can reach him on Twitter at Desmond Majek.
Desmajek.
Yeah, Desmajek. So, all right, so everything around environmental issues, you can reach him on that. He's somebody, if you've been following music, environmental issues, if you've been around Lekki, the beach, you should definitely know him. So basically reach him on Twitter and get the conversation going. Thank you very much, guys. After this, we go off this, we'll be coming back with the SME show. We're talking the SME clinic. We'll have some experts in the studio to talk to you to solve your business problems, basically. Do not go anywhere. Just stay with us. You're still on 99.3 Nigeria Info. But City of Lagos, look at your timepieces, 4 minutes after 10. Still a very young morning to go out and be profitable.